Well, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on today. We have an exciting show for you with Prophet Kervin J. Smith on the topic of wealthy women think differently. This is from his book, and we're going to have an amazing show on today. So we're going to have Prophet Kervin to come into the show now so we can greet him and welcome him to the show. Well, good evening. Well,
Good
good
evening.
afternoon.
First thing, Kervin.
Good afternoon, Prophet. How are you, sir? How are you doing today?
Man, we doing well, holding well. God is good. The Lord
Yeah.
is a blessing. It's a blessing to be with you.
Well, I tell you,
Wonderful.
it's a great opportunity and a great blessing to have you here with Lady Perry and myself.
Yes, sir.
And we're gonna. I mean, I had an opportunity to do an aerial read of your book, and it's powerful.
Yes.
Talking about wealthy women think differently, and we're gonna dive into that today. There's so many keys and so many components that are in the book that I believe it will set any woman on a path to wealth. And so we're excited to have you here with us, and I know we have an audience who's going to be gleaming, and so I know they're going to be tremendously blessed also.
Yes, sir. It's a blessing to be on. Thank you for the opportunity of having me. It's you've been my brother and sister for a long time. So
Yes, sir.
in this pandemic, we're just sitting here enjoying life. I'm quite sure you're enjoying life. So we're ready.
Yes, sir. We most definitely are. Well, look, we're gonna dive into it. So let's pose this first question, Prophet. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, the thing that inspired me, one of the reasons why, someone say, why didn't you say wealthy men? There is something about the initial connection with a man and his mother that changes the complete trajectory. From the first time he comes into the earth, his mother begins to breastfeed him. And when she's breastfeeding the man, one of the first things that the mother is breastfeeding into him is not just nutrition, but she's breastfeeding him purpose and destiny.
Wow.
While she's breastfeeding you, she has your head there. The mother's stroking your hair. What is she doing? She's just not feeding you. She's speaking things over you. Particularly, she's a spiritual woman. She's speaking things over you. He's not going to be like everybody else. He's going to be an unusual child. And every time you breastfeed, that's the same when we get the word El Shad. The word El Shaddai means the multiple breasted God. So
Right.
when we're lifting our hands, this is the national sign of surrendering. I know that now with a lot of the protests, they're doing the fist, but that's not the national surrendering. Whenever you're surrendering, your hands are up. What does that mean? That means I'm submitting to you. I'm not just submitting to the police force, but so that's what happens. There's an interesting picture that's been going around. I don't know if you saw it, of the baby that was drinking a bottle. And this was last month. He was born. The child had his hands up in the air.
Yes.
I saw that. Yeah.
The national sign of surrendering. And so what are you saying? When God's breastfeeding you, it's the same thing. El Shaddai, God breastfeeds you. And while God's breastfeeding you, he's checking through your life. He's checking your diaper to see if you need to be cleaned up. He's checking your shoes to see if you need new shoes for a new destination, new journey. Well, the whole concept came with that, from being connected to a mother who instilled in us from day one. And I still, even today, I'm up at 4:55 every morning. My father used to walk the floor. You could hear that boom, 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 boom. The padding of the feet. He let us know at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, everybody's up. Either you're going to work or you're going to school, but you're up. And that from that point on. But my mother was an entrepreneur, retired at 52 years old. She empowered. She used to always keep me, and she used to always keep me with her. And she said, I need you to understand that there's two people in life. There's people that are going to work, and there's people that are going to hustle. She said, hustlers will never be confined to a job because they will be in a place called frustration. So from 3 years old, 4 years old, she always had me doing something, selling something. She always had, and so she sat down and gave me keys that would help, move me from where I am. And literally, the truth of the matter is, several times I've lost everything. Several times. A lot of people don't know. It's my first time saying it. Many years ago, about 15, 20 years ago, lost everything, started from ground zero. But because I had the concept and the keys, I could start right from there and literally explode in just a short matter of time. And that's what this whole book was about. So, I sat at her feet. My dad was the worker, but my mother was the hustler. She was the one that had all these businesses, and because she had all these businesses, she told my father, "You retire." He retired at 55. She retired at 52, and they never worked another job, another day in their life. But those are all concepts because I learned from sitting at the feet. I call her the master. One of the things about women is they're going to literally disrupt economics in the 21st century. It's already happening. Women are going to disrupt economics in the 21st century. They control $20 trillion in the United States. And 30 trillion worldwide. So they are a force to be reckoned with. Those of us that have looked away from them, this is why now we got to respect them, Apostle, because they're in the boardrooms. And the older I get now, I try to keep evolving, because if you don't evolve, you're going to be stuck. One of the things I'm learning, and as you study women and you listen to women, 85 to 90% of the time, they're right. Any smart man that is successful, somewhere around him, if he's not married, he's got a secretary, he's got a sister, he's got a mother, somebody that's been pouring into him. And so that's how this whole concept came with the book. That more and more each day, I'm having more and more respect for women, because there's just some natural business acumen and things that they have that are just mind-boggling.
Wow. Now that's interesting, Prophet, the way you explained that and talked about your father being the worker and your mother. You can't hear me? Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Very interesting concept. What about now? We're probably just having some technical difficulties.
The audio's off. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Audio's off.
Okay, you're still not able to hear us? Okay. They're just coming here and see what's going on. So you have sound on your. Okay, not able to hear. Okay, they're working some things in the background, but in case the audience can hear us, I think it's a powerful. I guess what caught my attention was he talked about how his father was the worker, and his mother was the hustler. And in our society, that's such a negative connotation that goes with a hustler. It's right. Interesting because we grew up in a society where a guy who was a hustler, and we said it from a negative standpoint. Yes, man, he's just some old hustler. He's just a hustler, and really we discount it. And I believe that possibly somewhere in that individual who was constantly hustling, that was this entrepreneur. That was an entrepreneur that just needed some wisdom, needed some guidance, just needed, had that desire, had that drive, and probably didn't even realize themselves why is it that they were just never comfortable on a job or in a work confinement. And there's nothing wrong with that. No. But all of us are wired differently. Right. All of us are wired differently. You put it's like a fish. You put him in a tank and in water, and he just swims. But if you put him on the concrete, he'll flap until he dies. And there are some individuals, they just don't do well in a work environment. And that's okay. But if you give them a hustle, yes, you give them a hustle, man, they'll begin to swim. And I think it's important. It's a shift. And I think it's important to understand that, as Prophet Kervin mentioned, one of the things about his mom, she was very, very successful, very wealthy, and he got to see that hustler. Yes, he got to see that hustler. Now, I just want to talk about a few things until he comes back on.
He said something about, he said his mother was one that taught him. And in his book, he talked about his mother was one of the wealthiest women of all time that he knew.
Wow.
And that says a lot about his mother.
It says a whole lot about her. And watch this. She was not trying to keep it to herself. She was willing to pour it into him,
children.
You know, and teaching him some skills and the tools and the components that were necessary for becoming wealthy.
Well, that's something that any mother, hopefully she can catch this, because he was 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, growing up, and she was pouring into him at that time.
Yeah.
She didn't wait till he became 16, 17 and was able to fill out an application. No, she poured into him at that moment as a child.
Well, during those informative years,
yes,
while he's developing, you know, she's laying the track.
Yeah,
she's laying the track so that as he matures and as he grows, he's able to follow that track.
That's good.
Rather than waiting until, you know, your child is.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
Yeah.
Watch this, and you're right. It's never too late, but the later, the harder the work is.
Yes,
it's never too late. But once you get so far, because all things are still possible. You know, we have the God factor. All things are still possible, but you have to. Many times, the longer you wait, the more you have to unlearn.
Yes.
See, it's one thing to learn, but then it's another thing to unlearn. And sometimes it takes more time unlearning than it does learning.
Yes.
And so, but he talked about some very and those of you, of course, you may be just hearing about the book, but it's called Wealthy Women Think Differently.
And you can order it online.
You can order it online. And so when you think about wealthy women thinking differently, then that lets us know it's going to be a mindset. Right. It's a mindset. And sometimes we just don't develop our minds and our way of thinking and our thought patterns so that we can become successful, so that we can fulfill, so that we could accomplish. Many times we don't develop that mindset so that we can do that. I see Prophet, but can you hear us, Prophet?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay, you can hear us now.
Yeah. Okay. Fixed, man.
Hey, man, this is technology, Prophet. Technology. But you talk about several. You know, my wife and I, while you were off, we were just talking about this whole idea of the word hustling. You know, in our society, Prophet, you know, we look down on a hustler. You know, a guy, whether it be a lady or a guy who was a hustler, wasn't really confined to a job, but he was that hustler, and we look down on that in our society. But you're reshaping the way we think and the way we look at a hustler. What's called a hustler?
Entrepreneur.
It's an entrepreneur in that. That entrepreneur in that.
It is, and I'm going to tell you right now. I have a thing I'm doing for the next 4 weeks, starting next Thursday on the 30th. What do you do after the pandemic? The problem with a lot of people right now is they're really in this quagmire. They're just stuck because they're saying, you know, what can I do in the midst of a pandemic? Really comes from the word pandemonium. You see, food, you know, things are happening everywhere. This is the hour really where creativity comes forth. There's a chapter I deal with in the book about creativity. And really, you got to get more out of this, out of going through a pandemic. You got to get more out of just watching Law and Order and Chicago PD, watching Marathon day after day after day, and knowing all, you know, what's going on with the housewives. And I was telling somebody the other day, I said, if you don't have in this season, in this time, if you don't have in your mindset to come out of this with a book, with a movie, with an idea, with an invention, you're going to miss it, because there is tremendous wealth that's being created during this pandemic. It's fascinating. You know, if I went to the dealership, I was driving. I have a friend that works at the dealership. He said from March to now, he's been selling cars 25 years. He says he sold more cars from March. They don't even have cars on the lot, which lets you know that people are still spending money. Things are still happening, even in the midst of the pandemic, even in the midst of the stock market going up and down. There's something to learn when it comes. And when we were talking about hustler, and a lot of people here, oh, like you said, it's not a negative connotation. The hustler is the person. And for instance, it has to be a hustler that's in you, because I mean, I know from Apostle Perry paid the building off. Once he paid the building off, people just, they sat back and said, oh, now we can breathe. No, no, no. Now he's building something else that's going to be. So you constantly see the guy that stops. The moment you stop is the moment you die.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it may not be dying physically, but there is something that there is a death. That's why the Bible says without a vision, the people perish.
That's right.
If you don't have a vision, then there's literally, you start beginning to diminish and you start going down. You have to keep, that's why the Bible says, my God shall supply all of my needs according to his riches and glory. Now you got to get that. So what do you mean? If God's going to supply, there must be a consistent need in front of him.
Yeah.
I didn't want a need. As long as you keep pushing needs, he's going to supply. So you have to understand that need and supply are married together. If I need in front of them, the supply consistently kisses. The supply will kiss the need, not the want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I love that, Prophet.
I said during this time, I refuse to waste this time.
Yes.
We've never had this much time.
Never.
I can't even recall.
Never.
But and I said, and I refuse to waste it
Never.
and not be productive during this time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This is the time, like I said, this is the time to be creative. This is the time to be innovative. You know, Prophet, while you were talking, I had this thought come to me. Just because things shut down, your mind should never shut down.
True.
And your thinking should never shut down. You should always be increasing in your thoughts.
Right.
Yes. But you know, here's the thing. A lot of people are at the point, because so many people, one lady was talking to me and telling me how she lost her job. And I said to her, good. And she said, why would you say that? Now, how am I going to support? I said, now God's got you in a place where he can speak to you.
Yeah.
You know, you can make, you know, she's very creative. She makes all of these different arts and crafts. And I said, maybe God is bringing you home so that you can begin to start developing that, the crafts. And she started working on this stuff and started selling. Next thing I know, she was selling these masks. She was making 1,000. She's making 2,000. She's making 3,000. See, that's what's happening now in this time. And the saints of God have got to understand that God is trying to get us to the place where, watch this, where we don't need stuff anymore. He's trying to get us where we're operating from a position of financial solvency. In other words, we don't owe anybody anything. So what would it be like if you didn't owe anybody anything? If you could just get up in the morning and whatever you needed, you got it, or you just didn't need a thing. You have a vacation home, you got this home, whatever you want to do. But in the process of that, you can just serve and worship God. And then the people see, that's the problem. That's a whole different posture, because church as we know it, I'm going to tell you, church as we know it has changed.
Right.
We're not going to really, church really is not going to snap back until the end of 21, the beginning of 22. And so this is why some churches right now that have these tremendous amounts of debt, 80,000, 100,000. Some of these churches that were renting hotels, and now you can't rent the hotel. You're paying 50,000 or 10,000 a month. Guess what God's doing? He's allowing you to breathe. You haven't been able to breathe for 15 years. He's allowing you to breathe. So guess what? Sometimes if you're going to be a wealthy woman or wealthy man and you're going to think differently, sometimes you got to minimize to maximize.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nothing wrong
Yes, that's good.
paid for. Watch this. There's nothing wrong with driving a Honda paid for versus taking that Mercedes note that you were paying $2,300 a month and banking that, along with the $10,000 that you were paying for the church. So what's happening? They're watching you online anyway. If people are with you, they're going to follow you. They're going to follow you, whatever. And even when you begin to open the church up, the church is not going to fill immediately because people are nervous.
Right.
And
exactly right.
You understand, you got to be strategic. A lot of guys are telling me they want to go to seminary, they want to go to Bible school. I mentored some of these young men. They asked me, what should I major in school? I said, business. Go get yourself a business degree. Before you go to Bible college, get yourself a business degree so you know how to run your business. Because if you don't know how to run your business, you'll be the guy you'll have $10 million in a bank account, and you'll have some accountant take it and pretty much siphon it off and because you don't know how to read income statements. You don't know the difference between assets and liability. You're relying on somebody else. You
Right.
have to know how to run your business. And that's the same thing. And the smart guy, the smart guy is the guy that gets people to surround him. And that's the same thing with wealthy women. They'll get people to surround them to help lay the foundation, because whatever I don't know, you don't always need to be the smartest person in the room. As a matter of fact, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room.
Yeah, you're in the wrong room. You're in the wrong room, Prophet.
I'm not going to pay you $100,000 a year for me to do your job for you. You need to be able to do your job and somebody else's job.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love that. I like what you mentioned about the lady, and it goes back to the point we were making. The lady who her job shut down, but you were able to help her open up her mind.
Yeah.
Right.
And she was able to tap into something else.
Yes.
Now listen, you have to go.
Now I had a question here.
Okay.
How can women maintain a healthy mindset during these crises?
Really, this is the time during this crisis. This is when the time where she really needs to find out who she really is. She needs to really find out, because the truth of the matter is, most of us, we do a lot of running. You run here, you run there, but sitting in your house, like you said, you and Apostle, you guys have not spent this much time since you don't know. And what happens? What does that do? That allows you to reignite, to reestablish, to restore some things. And so if I'm the woman that's sitting there, I have to ask myself, I have to say to myself, the scripture reminds me in 2 Kings chapter 4, where the woman had nothing but oil in her house.
Yeah.
And my question for that woman that's trying to find herself, what is the oil in your house? What's the oil that's sitting in your house that's going to establish and change the trajectory of your life? That you will no longer be stuck making $20 an hour, but now you can move to making $2,000 a day or a week. What is it? And when your mindset begins to start expanding, then you'll start going back. Sometimes God wants you to go back to something you ran away from. Sometimes most people, oftentimes, they leave the place before God gets ready to bless them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not making enough money. Okay, you're making enough money to survive, but there's going to be a point in your life where you're literally going to change the course of your life. It's literally going to change. So if I was going to tell someone today, what kind of business would I go into? Many people ask me, what business would you go into? I said, looks like the health business.
Yeah.
Right now, that's the business. And that woman that's sitting home, back to that woman that's sitting at home, she needs to get back in touch with herself. She needs to fall in love with herself all over again.
Yeah.
Right.
Fall in love with yourself. And when you fall out of love with yourself, you walk around and you drive in a car called miserable.
Wow. Come on. Wow. Now you mentioned in your book, when you talk about the keys, you talked about the first key, which was hard work.
Yes.
So talk about, because even the Bible talks about how lazy people will never amass. And so when you're slothful, that a slothful person will not take in will not roast what they took in hunting.
Right.
And so talk to us about the importance and the value of hard work, that grinding, that being diligent.
Well, people always want the success. They look at you, they look at your lifestyle, they look at the home you live in, and they say to themselves, man, I want that. Well, the truth of the matter is, do you really want it? Because if you want what Charles Perry has gone, you want this lifestyle, that means you have to go through what he went through. If you want First Lady Perry stuff, you got to go through what she went through to get that. And see, that's the problem. Most people, they want it immediately, but they don't want to put the work in. And see, that's the thing about us. You know, I don't care if I'm 20, 30, 40, 50. That's two things I established in my children. The same thing my mom established in my sisters and I was hard work. You're going to have to put the work in. That's in anything. You want to be a great basketball player? You got to put the work in. LeBron James is the baddest basketball player out there. That man is still working like he's hungry. I look on television. I look at some of you guys. I look at you I look at you online and watch you ministering. You're ministering like a guy that's hungry. Like this guy. Wait a minute. This guy's ministering like he's broke. I look at people like Bishop Jakes. Bishop Jakes is preaching to 7 people in that big facility. The man is preaching like he has to eat tomorrow. What are you trying to I'm trying to say, if you ever lose hard work, you're going to miss it. And you're never going to get to that next level without putting the time in. And the guy that's hungry, look at me. I'm still getting up 4 something in the morning. I get up in the morning. I'm constantly taking calls. And I was talking to someone yesterday, and I've gotten some people in some business venues, and they need some coaching. And it's 10 o'clock at night, and they're walking around yawning. And they said to me, why are you being so hard on me? I said, sometimes you're gonna like this, Apostle. Sometimes your mentor will be your tormentor.
Whoa. Ooh. Yeah,
Same woman that torment. Oh, because my mother used to do the same thing. You know, I'd nod off. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. I'd be nodding off, and she looking at me, and she telling me, "What's wrong? You're too young to be falling asleep. Get up, get yourself together." Yes. She was, and what does it do? You transfer that to your children. You know, sometimes my kids say, "Well, you're like maybe a little bit hard on me," but guess what? They'll thank you later.
Yeah, they'll thank you later.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
In another part of the book, it says one of the reasons many women do not reach their goals is because they give up even before they start.
Yep. They're at the precipice. It's not that they don't have the talent. It's not that they don't have the giftings. They got one thing: broken focus.
Wow. Broken focus.
Broken focus. Or they're connected to people who will break their focus.
Yeah.
They're focused. Well, you know what? I'm going to go to Larry and if you don't have somebody in a relationship that challenges you, that gets on your nerves at times, something's wrong.
Right.
Everything can't be perfect. And so, they give up. I've seen some of them. Some of the greatest singers are people who will never be heard. Some of the greatest models are people who are afraid. They just thought they were cute and they walked into the room. But let me tell you something. When you go to Los Angeles, it's a whole lot of cute people. You go somewhere like Houston, it's a whole lot of beautiful women doing it. You got a bachelor's degree. Guess what? She got a master's degree. Well, I got a master's from Columbia. Well, she got a master's from Harvard and Columbia. You go to Atlanta, you got the same thing. The competition is stiff. So you know what? I'm just gonna give up. What do they move to? I'm gonna move to Wyoming. I'm move to Wyoming. Why they moving to Wyoming? Because there's no challenge to go to Wyoming. You know, and sometimes you're gonna be successful. You gotta be connected to people who put the heat on you. We call it fire. Apostle. Sometimes you get in these meetings, Apostle, and you got to put heat on people. And sometimes do it. You know what? It's not that they did anything. You just know what's in them.
The potential.
You heat on them.
And you're trying to pull it out of them.
You know, and sometimes you do it on purpose. I do it sometimes. I used to do it sometimes with my kids. You know, I just to put the heat on them for just general purpose. I'm going to put the heat on you. And then you know what's going to happen? Because once that heat is placed on you, something in you is going to say, you know what? I got to keep moving. I got to keep moving. And so that's the problem. A lot of people, they're just quick to give up, throw their hands up in the air and say, you know, I'm through with it.
Wow.
What about a self-motivated person?
The self-motivated person, all they need is the roadmap to help navigate them to the place called success.
Yeah.
The person that's self-motivated is somebody that you don't have to tell them what to do. They may not be the smartest person in the room, but they're going to get up. They you know, this person at the church, that's the person that's going to clean up the bathroom and they're not being paid. That's the person that's going to walk around the parking lot and pick paper up. That's the person you say, listen, hey, I need you to take these flyers and pass them out to everybody. I know people don't do flyers anymore on social media, but I need you to pass it. That's the person that's self-motivated. And you don't have to tell them anything. I did an exercise, Pastor, with people, and I gave everybody, it was about 30 of them. I gave them $10 each. And they said, why are you giving us $10? I said, I'm giving you $10 each. Go start a business. And they said, what am I going to do with $10? I said, well, that's up to you. You know, let's find out if you're motivated. 5 of them went to, watch this, 5 of them went to the dollar store. They started buying water and they started selling the water. They started turning the water over. A couple of them bought some arts and crafts. Then I had the bulk of them came back and said, I didn't know what to do with $10. I just ended up buying myself. I was so tired. I bought myself some chicken nuggets and McDonald's. And then I looked at them. This is where you are. Those people will be in the place. Listen, give a guy $10 and let him sit down. He'll think and figure out a way how to double it, how to quadruple it. That's how we are. Yeah.
Wow. Kind of sound like Matthew 25.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He gave one 5, gave one 2, he gave one 1. Now somebody asked a question. They said, well, why did he give the guy 5? Why did he take the talent from the guy that didn't do anything and give it to the guy with 5? I said, because he knew what to do with it.
Yeah.
Each one of those levels, Apostle, represent where you are. 5 represents superior, 2 represents good, 1 represents average.
Wow.
Most people rather settle for average than superior. The guy with 5 talents, you know why he gave him 5? Because the master knew he knew what to do with it.
Yes,
he gave the guy 2 because he knew what to do. He gave the guy 1 because that's where he is. You got to ask yourself in life, are you the 5, the 2, or the 1? If you're the 1, watch this. You've got to learn how to work the talent that God has given you.
That's right.
How to work it. If you got some people just know how to, they've got 1 talent. Some of us have multiple talents, but in your multiple talents, I think to me, now this is probably something, it might be a little controversial, but to me, one of the greatest sins is God to give you a gift and you sit on it.
Yes, sir.
Jesus.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yep, that's right. I mean, God called him wicked.
Yes.
Called him slothful.
Yes.
Yep. Unproductive.
And on page 63, it talks about the quality and consistencies. It says, learn to become better in what you do. That is $1 million advice. You're going nowhere if you're only concerned about getting bigger and not getting better.
Right. And the person that decides to get better is constantly studying, constantly reading, constantly preparing themselves. You can't just become successful. And that's today's society. A lot of these millennials, they want to be big. They want to blow up overnight, but you got to understand the quality of your work. When I say the quality of your work, you got to get better. And each time, I mean, we've been doing this for years. And guess what? We're the hardest person on we're so hard on each other. I go to different places, get in the car. The guy's playing what I talked about. I'm like, man, I don't want to hear that because it was last night. We on to something else. So I'm always like, let's move fresh. And you got to consistently keep getting better. And one of the things about this pandemic, guys, is I'm telling you, it has challenged me to get back something because it's so easy traveling, moving around that you sometimes can miss certain things.
Yeah.
And I know, Pastor, when y'all speaking, sometimes you said, man, I wish I had to put a little bit something more onto that. I would have wished, what it has brought me back to is don't settle for mediocrity. And if people don't want to come where you are, then there's always a group of people that want to come up. And sometimes we just dummy down everything in life. No, people need to come up. Sometimes you just need to come up. If you've been sitting under your ministry, you guys are phenomenal teachers. You've been sitting there for 12, 13, 14, 15 years, and you still haven't gotten it. Something's wrong. You still struggling? Something's wrong.
Yes, sir.
What it is, you're probably not following the basic tenets. I can go back to foundation. You're not paying your tithes regularly. You're not paying your offerings. And that's why you're where you are. You'll watch people literally come to the church 5 years after you join the church, and they will pass you or lap you in the spirit.
Yeah. I've seen
Jesus.
it. Yeah. It happens all the time.
Like, how in the world is she driving? And the girl came, her credit was 480. Now she got a 785 credit score. Her living, she bought property everywhere, happy, successful. She's not even married. She's been to Paris by herself. She's been to Switzerland by herself. She's not waiting for a man to take her somewhere.
Right.
When man comes to find me, I'm gonna be having such a good time. He gonna just be like, man, my game has got to be up. But you have instilled that in them. You pastors, you have instilled that. You've taught them to have better, to want better, to want to live better. And people look at that, they subscribe. People want their pastor to do well. A friend of mine said he had a Sunday morning service, then they had an afternoon service, and one of his members came over and said, Pastor, you gonna change that suit, right? He said, what you mean by that? He said, this friends and family. I got family coming. I told my family, you wear Tom Ford suits. You can't wear the same suit this morning this afternoon, you need to look fresh. That's what
Yeah.
the member will tell them. Because
Right.
people want their pastors to look good, to drive good, to smell good, and because he sets the bar.
Right.
That's the
Yes.
bar.
Hey, bar. Yes.
What about the woman who may have been wealthy or on her way to becoming wealthy, and she has been impacted by a setback? What would you say to that woman who has to start over and begin again? I heard you mention that you started over many times and lost everything.
Yes.
What would you say to her with the setback she's had?
I would say that one of the first things you need to do is you need to get away from what's familiar. In other words, you need to take a break. You need to get out of the environment you're in. If you're going to make a major decision and a major move, the thought can't come from where you live. You've got to go outside the state. You got too many things that are pulling at you. Even if you drove to Louisiana and said, you know what, I'm going to go to New Orleans for about 3 days. What is that doing? It's literally getting you out of your element and getting you to a place, first of all, to rest physically, but then second of all, to begin to get your emotions flowing and juices begin to flow. Now, what are you saying? I got one word for this woman: reinvent yourself.
Wow.
Go back, reinvent yourself, because maybe somewhere along the line you missed something, or you was connected to somebody, and that's the reason why things didn't take off. In other words, you may have a marriage that's rocky, and it's been rocky for 15 years. Now, watch this. You're sitting on a $50 million idea, and you wonder, why didn't this thing happen? I've got the educational pedigree. We've got the finance. It just seems like things keep falling through the crack. People never think maybe God does not want this person to benefit from what's about to happen in your life. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not supposed to get the residuals. In other words, maybe you got to do one thing, make a decision. Because if the man's cheated on you 15 times, you don't have to ask God, what should I do? You don't have to. If the man is slapping you in the head, you don't need to say, Apostle Perry, what should I do? You don't need no more Holy Ghost. You need some sense. And sometimes the thing that you've been waiting on to happen. Now, watch this, First Lady. You make one move, you shift to the left or shift to the right, and the shift you make automatically, everything that you should have had kisses you, because God, you said I was waiting on God. No, God was waiting on you.
Yeah, that's good.
It may not be a relationship. It may mean a business partner. You around people that are shiesty. You know, when you're a cheater, it's a pattern that follows you.
Right.
You know, you cheat in school, you cheat in relationships, you cheat in marriage, you cheat in business. That's something that follows you. And if you know that person and that's the characteristics of who they are, you need to make a decision and say, you know what, I got to cut this situation off because it's a cancer.
It's a cancer. Yes.
Cancer.
Talk about Prophet, the importance of, you talk about it in the book, but emotional intelligence. Why emotional intelligence is important for success and wealth.
Well, one of the reasons why emotional intelligence is important is because people oftentimes make moves based on their emotions. I was just it's funny we're talking about this because I had a conference with about 7 people 4 days ago. One of the things about men is when we don't like a man, we don't necessarily have to like him to do business with him. Mm-hmm. You know, you may know the guy is shiesty. He's at the table, this real estate deal, but you know, God has really told you, this is the deal this is your deal. And you know, sometimes if women don't like you, man, they will get up and walk away from the baby, this is $100 million. I don't care. Leave the money. Leave. Excuse me, y'all. I'll be right back. I need to talk to my wife. I'm telling you, this lady's rolling her eyes at me. And she's rolling her eyes at you. So there's a certain, you have to literally be able to bring your emotions into check when you're getting ready. Wealthy women know how to do it. They sit down all the time, and they sit down, and ladies rolling their eyes at them because her skin is immaculate, and she's got the right bag, and she's got the right car, she's got everything, the watch, she's got the whole, and they're smart enough to say, okay, I'm going to do business with her. I don't know how many times, but I know she doesn't like me. You know, women know this stuff. I know she doesn't like me. She don't care for me, but I'm still going to do business. You know, man, our sisters, oh, they will walk away from the table. I'm telling you. They will walk away from the table. And I try to tell people all the time, don't get mad, get paid.
That's good. Don't get mad, get paid.
Watch it. Don't get mad, get paid. You don't necessarily have to be in this person's life forever, but allow something to come out of it to be a blessing to you and a blessing to the kingdom. Sometimes it's bigger than you. If I'm sitting at the table, we're getting ready to do a $300 million deal, and I know that with the $30 million paying tithes, I could change lives for the next 4 or 5 years. I can feed people. I can put people in housing. I can do something like give me a chance, give them second chance, give people that was in jail, you know, train them up, give them a vocation. And if I know, I have to think beyond myself. You got to think. That's what leaders do. That's what a leader do. And that's why we're sitting in the house now, because of leadership. Leadership is paramount. I'm telling you.
Yes, sir.
When a leader is in place, they'll tell a person, listen, get yourself together. I know you don't like them. I know you can't stand them. I know they cussed you out, but there's a contract on the table. They told you to come sign. Well, Pastor, I don't know if I want $5 million. I'm sorry. When was the last time $5 million came through your bank account? Think about it for a second. Never. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Once again, I want to encourage you to go online and order the book on the KervinJSmithBooks.com. It's on the screen. Go ahead and order your book today. Now, Prophet, I want to ask you another question. If a woman was to evaluate herself, how can she evaluate herself to see where she really is?
Well, the first thing in evaluating herself is she's got to understand something called risk. The first thing is, are you willing to run the risk? If you're not willing to run the risk, then get away from the table. The second thing is, you've got to know your self-worth. In other words, you might, as I was saying before, look around you and see what circle you're in. Is this the right circle? Is this where you're supposed to be? The third thing is, after risk and self-worth, the next thing is she got to look at herself relationally. What are your relationships like? Are your relationships toxic? Because if you hang around toxic people, I guarantee you, they're not going to push you towards your dreams. They're going to pull you away from your dreams.
Right.
And the fourth thing, she has to assess. She has to literally hear from God. What is God saying? A lot of times people say they're hearing from God, but you're not really hearing from God, because literally you're talking to yourself. You know, that was God who spoke to me. You know, God spoke to you. Because if God would have spoke to you, something would have changed.
Yes.
Something would have shifted. You understand what I'm saying? It's almost like I'm sitting on the corner and I have a business. I open up a donut business, and I make donuts better than anybody else, but I only see 2 customers a day. Now,
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
The rest of the donuts, I'm eating up the profit. If I'm not, you know.
Yes, sir.
Oh, now here you are, 800 pounds. You blew up now because you said to yourself, oh my God. But now let's switch back. Let me show you something. So is that where you're supposed to be? You're the best donut maker. Sometimes a change in locations will cause the whole shifting of your life. I'll give you an example. There was a woman, Jamaican lady. She made what was called this cocoa bread, and the cocoa bread is good. And I went to her restaurant, and I said to her, I said, Mommy, you're a good cook, but this is the wrong place. She said, what do you mean? I said, let me pray for you and believe God somebody's going to sublease it. Man, somebody came in and subleased it. That woman went back to her house. Now, if I take you to her house now, the cars are parked around the block. It's almost like it's worse than Chick-fil-A. You wonder why these cars parked to get this lady's cocoa bread. Now, and I pulled her to the side. She said, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. I came back home. God is good to me. Blessing me, man of God. And I pulled her to the side. I said, Mommy, how much money you make? She said, $50,000 a month from her house.
Wow, cocoa bread.
Wow. I'm trying to tell you, those of you that are sitting at home, The blessing, the miracle is going to start in your house. And it's
Wow.
going to welcome your house. Some of you may be fortunate like her to be able to be blessed. I mean, I was sitting here. It's funny. They got all these companies that's drop shipping. You could set up your own website. And people up and say, "Oh, that's nice." And you can literally people just order and drop ship, and they send you PayPal or Cash App or whatever. And so but you've got to begin to expand your mind. Amazon is not the biggest. Amazon is not doing what they're doing. And Jeff Bezos worth almost $150 billion because, now people are ordering from their house. It's unfortunate the brick and mortar is changing. Look at what church is right now. You got all these big churches. People paying $200,000 a month for mortgage. The churches are not occupied. What's happening? They're online. They're streaming. What's happening? It's changing the course, and we've got to evolve with change.
Got involved with the change.
Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier. You said some guys ask you what they can do, your mentees, and you said go back to school for business. One of the things that I've noticed that people may know the craft that they do, but they don't know the business. I want you to talk about the importance of knowing the business. Yes, you can create this awesome artwork or do hair or whatever, but you don't know the business.
Yes, I know some people. I can tell you some people right now, they don't have a lot of members, but they know the business. If you have infrastructure, I know several people. I know one person who doesn't have a lot of members, but the nuts and bolts, the infrastructure is tight. Every person, you should be able to function in every aspect of your business. If let's see the balance sheets. That's how a lot of people have been ripped off. Because they just signing checks, and you thought $7 million was in the account, and now they bring the account to you, it's $1.5 million. What's happened? And they start telling you all of this crazy stuff. One guy was telling me, we were getting ready to do business. And the guy says, he's telling me, this is how much we're making. He said, what is it going to take? I said, well, let me bring my forensic accountants in. He looked at me like, what you mean forensic accountants? I said, yeah, forensic accountants. Forensic, that's somebody that goes through everything. And I said, forensic accountants. And I said, I'll find out if this is a good deal after these guys look at it. And once the guys came in and looked the situation, they started looking the situation over in the beginning. We didn't end up doing the deal. They said, I don't know if he's going to come out with a better deal than you. He's going to come out. This is a few years ago, many years ago. And he wanted $1 million. Okay, I don't have a problem giving you $1 million, but I'm going to have to get paid 5 times what I'm giving you. And the guy looked and said, they told us from the beginning, he said, it ain't in there. So guess what? But if you don't know business, if you don't understand the infrastructure, you got some young guys coming up now, they know marketing, they know advertising. They know, even if your media guy walks out, you got pastors now that study that could go right behind the camera. I got a friend now that goes up in the ceiling and does the lines and then comes down and preaches to people crazy because he studied. And that's what we have to. And so, but fortunately, if you got good people, you pay them. But business is the most important thing. I told my kids, go back and get business. My son's talking about going back to get an MBA because, he didn't major in business, but he made something else. It's been good for him. But I told him that MBA is going to take you into another dimension. And the same thing, when you get the business, I'm telling you, you got doctors that are phenomenal, but they don't understand business. You got that are phenomenal, but they don't understand business. And when you don't understand business, the wool can be pulled over your eyes anytime.
Every time.
Well, I have this last one before I end. This is what I want to talk about. On page 110, it talks about, Oprah has this quote. She says, the greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude. And chapter 5 and key 5 talks about the success to a positive attitude, watching your language.
Yep. If you speak negativity, it always seems like it comes to you. You got to watch the words that are in your mouth. That's a good book. Watch your words, because sometimes people say, you know what, I'm going to fail. I just know I'm going to fail. And see, immediately when I hear you talk that kind of linguistic or that jargon, I'm literally moving away from you because your mindset is not programmed to do it. You got to speaking. I call it prophesying to yourself. You have to talk to yourself. Anybody that's successful, People that are rich, that are successful, always talk. The guy's got a Rolls Royce with the top down. You think the music is on. You think he's talking on the phone. He's talking to himself. He's saying, you know what? I just figured out how I'm going to make such and such. And you might look at him and say, man, what is this guy talking about? You know, you got to literally out and begin to tell you. I'm telling you, I find myself having not conversation. You got conversations problem because that means you're talking back to yourself. I'm not, but I'm literally speaking. I find myself always saying, this is what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. I was just I told my son a little while ago, I said, man, you got to have a plan. You got to have a backup for the backup for the backup. So if the deal falls apart for 100,000, you got to have a backup that's going to make you $500,000 and a backup that'll make you $1 million. So you constantly have to be 3 or 4 steps ahead of everybody. The guy that's 3 or 4 steps ahead of everybody is always going to be ahead. But if you're one of those guys that feel like you got to fit in, then you're going to be stuck. And so you've got to consistently keep telling yourself, I'm going to be successful. I don't care about this pandemic. God's going to prosper me.
God's going to prosper us.
You know, and I mean, just another level after just another level. And the same thing with y'all in the midst of, I mean, right now, people are joining churches online.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's my church. I'm paying tithes there. That Pastor Perry, I'm telling you, that man and Rose Sharon, that's my pastor. You know, people are joining churches and stuff right now. So what's going to happen? The churches that are cutting edge, they're going to find out several things. Now, you may not get a lot of people to come back to where you are, but there's going to be other people saying, Apostle Perry, I'm in Arizona. Can you come by? We got 400 people over here. Can you come by and minister to us on Saturday? Oh, yeah. I mean, you can. So opportunities are going to be opening because there's going to be pockets of places where you ministered that's going to be bigger than Texas. See, God is always giving both of you a global ministry. And your people got to understand you're global, you're global, you're global, you're global. And when you say global, we're not just talking about Texas. We're talking about other places. When you're an apostle, establishing churches, establishing ministries. And so this is what's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. I'm telling you. Between 20 to 22, you're going to see new faces change. It's not going to be the same.
Yeah, we're seeing the start of it.
All the time. No, it's going to be a new group of people because there's voices. Many people have been echoes, but God is about to raise up voices.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Good.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Wow. Well, we'll end with this. We'll end with this. We'll end with this.
Okay.
The difference between wealthy and rich.
LeBron James is rich. The Bus family is wealthy.
Okay.
The rich guy works for the wealthy guy. The wealthy person, wealth is a mindset.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset.
Mindset. You know, it's when you say wealthy people think generationally. Pardon me.
Yeah.
You have poor folk, they spend every dime they get. You got middle class people, they want to look good. But then you got the wealthy people who think generation, who establish trust. So if something happens to you, it's the Perry Trust. Okay, let's just say, for instance, in the Perry Trust, we got $20 million. Well, the Perry Trust, the family trust lasts 350 years. And when the trust lasts 350 years, the person that marries my son, the person that marries my daughter, you get to enjoy the lifestyle. But if you decide you want to quit and leave, you leave with what you came with. Family trust. My son, he don't have to. Should I do a prenup? No, you don't have to do a prenup because nothing's in your name. That's what people are.
In the trust.
It's in the trust.
From you, if you go look at the records, that it's in a trust. Jay just bought a $58 million house in Bel Air. He and Beyonce. They bought it with a blind trust. $37 million from the blind trust was put on the house.
Ooh.
Wow. That's well.
You start buying 10, 15, 20, $30 million houses. Those people closing in 2-3 weeks. You know, brothers be like, look, I got to put some money together. I'm 90 days. But you know, when you buy a $10 million house, that's cash. That's not they're not financing that. You know, but I don't know what their situation was, but so that's the way they operate. The cars are in the trust, the homes are in the trust. That's how wealthy people think. Rich people, they still want to look good. They still wear diamonds and, and they flaw. But real money is always silent.
Yeah, it's quiet. That's right. It's quiet.
It's not the car. It's that you drive a bad car. But when you get around them, real money is the guy with the jeans on. He got on the flip-flops. And really, he don't care. He's not trying to impress anybody. But he knows who who he is. Because you go look at his house paid off. You go look at his car, and then he says to you, well, I want your son to come with me to Aspen. We're going to go to Aspen and spend Christmas in Aspen. And then when we leave Aspen, we're going to go to our villa in Barcelona. And that's when you start finding out that it's another level. That's wealth. But rich is, I'm just getting it. But eventually rich has to move to wealth because the reason why most of us will become rich, first generational, second generational, but by the third, fourth, fifth generational, now it becomes wealth. Now they have the Perry crest. They have the jacket with the crest on it. And you say, is that my grandson? He's walking around 5 years old, 6 years old with the crest on his jacket. He walks different. He talks different. His perspective in life is different. And so that's what the difference is between being rich and being wealthy.
Wow.
Good. That's good.
Powerful prophet.
I appreciate you, y'all. I really do.
Yeah. Thank you, prophet. Again, we want to, they have the information there. You can go to KervinJSmithBooks.com and order your copy today. Of course, we didn't even scratch the surface on all the
wealth, get the book.
The wealth of information that's in the book that will most definitely be a blessing to you. And then the author, Prophet Kervin Smith himself, he's qualified to talk about wealth. And so we're honored to have him here. I'm honored to be here with Lady Perry today for her show with Prophet. And so we want you to make sure you get his book.
Thank you so much, Prophet, for taking out the time on today. And a guy said yesterday, he wrote in on the comment section. He says he also read the book about 7 women you don't want to marry. So he was trying to get in that conversation. I'm like, okay, let's stay right here.
Listen. I got 2. I have 2 that's coming out this year, and I want to come back and talk about one. I want to talk about one book is coming out called The Journey to Success. I want to talk about that. I'll make sure y'all get one of the first copies. And the second is Why Mr. Right Can't Find You.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
We will be.
Okay.
We will do this again.
Okay.
Oh, man, I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much, man.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right.
Okay. You have a good one. Thank you so much.
All right. Bless you, Kervin.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you next time on Triumphant Living Today.
All right. Have a great day.